Okay, welcome folks to the Christina Whittaker case, part 2, which I'm dividing up actually into two separate sections because there's a lot to cover. So Christina Whittaker, as you may or may not be aware, disappeared and was officially spotted again in Peoria, Illinois. That's correct, Peoria, Illinois. But she originally disappeared from around Joplin in Hannibal, Missouri, off of the street corner there in Hannibal. And this is very important to document because it's the Creve Coeur Club. Once again, Creve Coeur Club, that's correct, of Peoria. And what's disturbing about this, folks, is when you go out here and you just start looking around and examining what's going on over here. There's no making this up. This is just messy. They've got some strange symbols in the window. They call it a microbrewery. You know, this is directly next to this Creve Coeur Club hangout, right? And every single one of the windows is tinted and blacked out. You know. And folks, this is what it's really all about. In specific with my channel, is finding out why. You know, and finding out truly what happened to these victims, like Christina Whittaker, of course. And so I've gotten comments before, like, you know, when will you do reviews of technology, things like that? You know, those types of things, folks, will be done once in a while on this channel. But you just need to be really aware and apprised to the fact that the majority of content on this channel is true crime content, is true crime cases. And when something is accidentally gotten incorrect, you know, like the fact that it's Robin Lane's cousin, actually, who was heavily involved with Ethan Wise, and then Robin K. Lane also got involved with Wise, you know, I'll be first to admit that we made a slight mistake. That's just how this always goes. But everything that is done here and that we do here on this channel is centered on solving these cases. And so I appreciate, you know, a lot of the comments you guys make much of the time. You know, I'm not opposed to certain content creators. Grizzly True Crime, she's a great one, you know. People like that, being able to collaborate maybe with them sometimes on things. But you need to realize that unlike those channels, the majority of focus that we have here is truly on getting these cases fully solved and getting them, you know, out of the way. And we want that to also be a long-term thing, because there's so many people who go missing every day. And you can see here, this is one of the reasons why it's upsetting to see what's happened with Miss Whittaker. Just the other day, Daniela T. Jackson, another victim, was shot with multiple gunshots right there by the Francis Medical Center. So, you know, this is truly a real thing. And it's going on all the time. And that's why we want to get to the bottom of it. And we want to get this, you know, finally fully resolved. We want to find out what's happening to all these trafficking victims. We want to find out where they're going. I see a lot of times in this area, there's trucks that have tinted windows, you know. There's other different things that should really be of concern to people. And we're going to bring attention to this. We're going to make sure people start really looking at this. And we're going to look at Ted Drews also in this area of Illinois. It's very important. Okay, folks, this is what it's all about, right? So I was navigating the different brewery areas where Christina probably would have stopped by in Peoria, Illinois, and I found this little gem. Came across it automatically, wouldn't you know it? A place called the First Descent. It's an actual climbing club in Peoria, which happens to be, after digging into it somewhat, it happens to be an affiliate, none other than the Triangle Rock Club once again. And what's interesting is that this was located right there near the Peoria riverfront. There's no way, you know, it's just impossible as far as coincidences is concerned. So whoever took Christina and the other victim appears to have been involved in climbing, appears to have been a member of this climbing club, because it's popped up a few times. They visited the first ascent, and apparently, because it's also popped up quite a bit, they also visited the arcades in the area of Peoria. We're going to look at that, and I'm going to have to split up what's being discovered about this area where they're climbing in a gym and so on. I'm going to have to split it up into two parts. This is very interesting what's been uncovered. Thank you. This is strange, admittedly, and it has to be documented for some reason. It's a kind of art studio slash special artists hotspot in Peoria, Illinois, of all places. Fat Chloe would come here, and they would go basically on the riverboat tours, you know, near the riverboat park. And what's interesting about all of this is there may have been trafficking that was going on here, because it talks a lot about just way too many kids being taken to these interesting studios over here near the warehouse. And so it's certainly possible this may have a lot to do with what happened to Christina Whittaker and also some of these other much, much younger kids who probably disappeared into the same kind of ring. Now, Matthew C. Everett, apparently, yeah, that Matthew Everett liked some of these studios, like this one run by the Fat Chloe. It's near the Peoria riverfront. So it's strange, but it's important. So this is it, folks. This is quite disturbing. We're going to go to this address in a second as well. This is Mullen Electric Company of Peoria, Illinois. Make no mistake of that. Mullen Electric Company. So, and we're going to go to that address. But something unseemly has been going on for a while at the Mullen Electric Company, not least of which is the fact that it really doesn't have a very good street address. It's difficult to get there, right? Well, that's also because it's run by Tim Mullen. Tim Mullen's brother. We'll talk about that in a second. And this is one of the arcades that they would have visited. It's out here in Peoria, Illinois. This is called a Classic Grand, essentially. It's kind of a theater slash video arcade of some sort. So, and it's important to show you guys this. And they probably would have taken a couple of trips here. Maybe they would have brought, you know, Whittaker in the back of a van or something, or one of the victims. And they would go to these arcades, and I really can't tell you why at this point, because there's so much it's being documented and looked at. And they come to one of these arcades, and Mullen Electric Company would be right, you know, right next door for some reason. Now, we don't know much about Tim Mullen at this stage, except that he was involved a lot with this group that's also in the Summer Wells case, for sure. And that's definitely disturbing in itself. But we do absolutely know that Tim Mullen's brother did have an electric company right here in Peoria, Illinois. Right over here, right next to one of these little houses off the beaten path near the Crossroads Baptist Church. Can't even make that up. And of course, Tim Mullen did a lot of things with, you know, just trolling people about Summer Wells, Michael Vaughn, you know, all of these victims. He would do that all the time. And look at that church, folks. That's disturbing, isn't it? It's like one room and they got a bus. In the back, you can't see in or out any of the windows. Doesn't look like a very friendly church. And this is right here, next to the exact area where Christina Whittaker was spotted and where they disappeared, believe it or not. So we're gonna be getting into it more. Now this is the Spirit of Peoria boat tours and rides right here. This is something else, isn't it? This is one of the things that Flack Clow talked about and everything. And this is one of the areas that apparently Matthew C. Everett visited quite a bit. It seems Tim Mullen may have visited this area as well. Now, what was going on over here exactly? Okay? That's what's going to require the part 2 to really explore why in the world they would go out and possibly take these boat rides. But we see here, this is right next to Peoria Riverfront. We can't mistake anything about that. It's certainly at least plausible that it's a perfect spot to traffic children. We're talking children as young as 12, 11, 10 years old. And then also, of course, 17-year-olds like Christina Whittaker and the other one who disappeared here in the Peoria, Illinois area. Now, what's interesting, folks, is the Spirit of Peoria boat tour is not generally open to just anybody. You have to create reservations. And this bridge that's above here that you see, that one, if you follow it all the way out, will go into Joplin and Hannibal, Missouri, all the way on the other side of this whole complex and area, which is strange. So, could it have at least been plausible that Spirit of Peoria Riverfront was used to traffic victims back and forth to all these different things? You bet. We're going to have to get into a part 2. Thanks. This is what it's really all about, folks. Now, this is kind of shocking and a little bit disturbing to see. Wheel Art Pottery Studios of Peoria, Illinois. It's in the Warehouse District. This is actually the background or backdrop for the Flat Clow commercial. This is one of the main unlisted art studios that it's actually been talking about this whole time. It's unnerving to see. You know, that guy there, he's probably completely oblivious to what's happened there before. But that is potentially a location, a very real location for child trafficking. And what I mean by that is, here we are at the art studio. This is the address on Washington Street. Every single one of the windows is blacked out. There's no looking in. There's no looking out. There's no decals on any of the windows. You know, that's no longer any kind of coincidence. And this is in Peoria, Illinois, directly near the Time Kitchen and Craft Lounge. You know, she would, Christina Whittaker especially, was a heavy drinker sometimes. She would go to bars and things like that. So this is directly next to the lounge. where she was likely at, and where one of her abductors most likely visited, I would say a few times, because look at the scenery here. This is kind of an interesting type of place, isn't it? Warehouse, stall or something. It says in the back it's like a kind of very strange area. You know, it's the bottom line. The warehouse state or something. And they have this buffet and everything there. And there's just no way that that's any coincidence. And we're going to have to get into this more, because I do firmly believe one victim or more, probably Christina Whittaker and someone else, were in this place, in this vacated art studio. The bizarre one that we've seen mentioned with Flat Clo a lot. This is going to be covered much more in part 2. But look forward to it. Thanks. And the arcade. You know, you just can't ever replace seeing stuff like this. It's amazing. This was the arcade right next to MC Brothers that they likely visited all the time. And what's always disturbing about that is when you see one of these places and you see it's really run down, things like that, you realize one of the victims probably died there. And that's why it's disturbing to see it up close, folks. Not talking about Christina, but I mean one of the other trafficking victims was killed there. So, anyway. So, yeah, folks, Christina Whittaker. This has been a very gut-wrenching case to really work on, because it's just obvious a lot of people aren't paying attention to this case and others the way they really should be. And we don't have true answers still. We have some answers with Samantha Sperry and similar cases, but we don't have true answers with Christina Whittaker. And I believe, after the evidence I've seen and similar things that I've really gone on to look into deeply, that Tim Mullen most likely was involved. It's very, very unlikely that he would have a brother or something with an electric company right there in Peoria and not end up being involved in the kidnapping of Christina, for sure. And, you know, there's some disturbing things that go along with that. But also it's been alleged that Matthew Everett visited that kind of ministry that you saw towards the end of the video, New Beginning Ministries. And so I would say it's certainly plausible that he knew what was going on with Tim, what was going on then with Christina when she was taken, for sure. I believe that's certainly plausible at this point. And that Noah Nelson and others probably covered up what happened after the fact. But that is a disturbing arcade, and that is really gives you the chills sometimes when you see that area. So make sure to spread the news. You know, we need to find out more about Christina's abductors, and we need to get the word out there as much as possible, because in part 2 I'll be doing a deep dive, and also, as promised, we are going to be exploring the Ghislaine Maxwell case, and that's going to be at least an hour long, something like that. So look forward to that. Like and subscribe, share the videos. Thank you. Signing off.